I kind of came at Christianity in an odd way, I guess. I was not a Christian growing up, didn't have any Christians in my family, but I did have a skill set as a detective where I could evaluate whether witnesses were telling me the truth. And at 35, when I first became interested, I bought a Bible and I started to examine it to see if Christianity, if the Gospels, if the alleged eyewitness accounts of what happened in that first century environment with Jesus of Nazareth, was that true? Were those reports reliable? And given that skill set, I determined that Christianity was true. After I wrote books about the case for Christianity and the case for God's existence, I started teaching and speaking at local churches. And after a few of these, I started to realize that many of the Christians who would attend these church services had never thought about their Christian faith evidentially before. And some of them even asked me, do I really need to know this case? I mean, do I really need to know why this is true? So I started asking congregations, well, why are you guys Christians? Because for me, I became a Christian because of the evidence. But I discovered that's not true for everybody. And as I asked that question around the country, I got the same 3 answers in almost always the same order. So I started to predict this for the pastors where I would speak. I would say, hey, I want to ask your congregation, and I'll bet you they're going to give me these 3 answers, probably in this order. The first and most common response I get for why are you a Christian is, I was raised that way. My parents were Christians. I've been a Christian as long as I can remember. I was raised in the church. Okay, good answer. The second most popular answer is, I've had an experience that I can attribute to God. Something happened in my life. Either I was cured of something, I was delivered from something that demonstrated to me that Christianity was true. Good answer. The third question is kind of like the second and experiential. I used to be a jerk, and then I met Jesus. I'm not so much a jerk anymore. He transformed my life. Okay, great. As I thought about those 3 answers, I thought, wow, I've got a lot of family who are Mormon. They're LDS. And if you were to ask them, why are you a Mormon? They'll give you the same 3 answers in almost the same order. They've all been raised in the LDS church. They've all had an experience of the Holy Spirit, they say, that confirmed for them that Joseph Smith's a prophet and that Mormonism is true and the Book of Mormon is true. Do you see the problem? Our answers, it turned out, don't just sound like Mormon answers. They sound like Buddhist answers, like Muslim answers. Anyone of any worldview can say the same 3 things. I thought, well, okay, we need better answers. We need to know if this is true evidentially, because otherwise we're kind of sharing our testimony with each other, right? But I've got a testimony and they've got a testimony. This is the strength of testimony. How do we know if either of our views is actually true? Well, we have to take a new approach. If you're somebody who's been calling yourself a Christian, I get it. It's time to take another step, because you're called, according to Peter in 1 Peter 3, you're called to be able to give the reason for the hope that you have. And Peter did it by always talking about what he saw as a direct evidence eyewitness. That's how he always proclaimed the gospel. We are called to be able to make the case for what we believe. So if you've been calling yourself a Christian, it's time to add the finish to the title. You're supposed to be a Christian case-maker. And if you've been a Christian but not a Christian case-maker, you've been living an abbreviated Christian life. We have really good answers for why Christianity is true. It's just time for both of us to learn them and become the best Christian case-makers we can be.